Croatia and Hungary are two different countries with two different peoples, and yet for about 800 years they were unified in the same political entity. How did that happen? Well, let's begin with the fact that in the 11th century, Croatia's king Zvonimir was married to the Hungarian princess Helena Arpad, sister to kings Geza and Ladislav of Hungary. Zvonimir and Helena married before Zvonimir became king in 1075, when he was a likely distant member of the Croatian royal family who held the Croatian high office of Ban, and he and Helena ruled over the area that would become Slavonia, which borders Hungary. Zvonimir was chosen as king by the Croatian estates after the death of King Peter Krešimir IV, and the interment of King Peter Krešimir's sickly nephew Stephen in a monastery. After 14 years of rule, Zvonimir died in 1089. His and Helena's only son died some time before that. By legend, Zvonimir is said to have been killed in a conspiracy by the Croatian nobility. Some take the story as fact, and speculate that Zvonimir had angered the nobility by ordering them to fight in a proto-crusade to help the Byzantine emperor fight against the Seljuk Turks. What we do know is that for the past few decades the Croatian kingdom and the Byzantine Empire, once good allies, had been at war. The relationship started deteriorating during the early 11th century, when Croatia was in civil war, and Byzantium's autonomous vassal Venice had started taking over the Dalmatian communes. The communes had been under Croatian protection in the name of the Byzantine emperor since Croatia's first king Tomislav in the early 10th century. The Croatian kings were given a portion of the Dalmatian imperial revenues in exchange for that protection, and later in the 10th century Byzantium sent the Croatian kings their first crown and regalia. But the relationship took a nosedive when Zvonimir's predecessor, King Peter Krešimir IV, decided to use the Byzantine distraction with the Seljuk Turks in the east to fully take control of the Dalmatian communes. And after that, Zvonimir appears to have participated in the Italian and Norman wars against Byzantium. Behind Croatia's turn against Byzantium were also changes in Christendom. The Great Schism of 1054 and the 11th century church reform. Croatia's kings appear to have mostly sided with the Catholic reformists, who wanted to get rid of the practices of Eastern Orthodoxy and traditional Croatian Slavic Glagolic Christian worship, which caused the relationship with Byzantium to deteriorate and caused noticeable divisions within Croatia, which forced the Croatian kings to balance between reform and tradition. There is also the fact that King Zvonimir, in order to legitimize his rule and find allies, took the side of the most reformist Pope Gregory VII, who sent Zvonimir a new crown and regalia, and some say that in the manner in which these were received, Zvonimir had effectively recognized the doctrine of papal supremacy and became the Pope's vassal. This act, I think, also had the effect of alienating the Holy Roman Emperor Heinrich IV, who was in the middle of the investiture struggle with Pope Gregory. Interestingly, around the same year of 1075, the new king Geza I of Hungary was also in search of a new crown. He was offered the same deal as Zvonimir by Pope Gregory, but he refused, instead taking a Byzantine crown with less strings attached. An act which might have ameliorated Hungary to the two emperors, even though Emperor Heinrich had interfered in Hungarian affairs and was partially responsible for Geza needing a new crown. But I digress. Zvonimir's death in 1089, during which, by legend, he cursed the Croatian people to never again have a king of their own blood or tongue, was followed by a succession crisis. King Peter Krešimir's sickly nephew Stephen was dragged out of a monastery and made king, but he would die due to ill health in 1091. And with his death the Trpimirović dynasty, the Croatian native royal line, as far as we know, went extinct. The Croatian kingdom was already in disarray even before Stephen's death, and factions formed around pretenders to the throne. One strong faction formed around King Zvonimir's widow, Queen Helena. They supported inviting Helena's brother, King Vladislav of Hungary, to take the Croatian throne. Through the right of his widowed sister, as the Croatian line had died out, she was the only familial connection. This option was also supported by some of the Dalmatian communes. King Vladislav advanced into Croatia soon after King Stephen's death. The area which will become Slavonia, which was ruled the longest by Zvonimir and Helena, quickly submitted to Vladislav. The area was not annexed into Hungary, but organized as a separate autonomous area, which will become apparent in later periods. Examples of that autonomy were Ladislav's appointment of his nephew Almos as viceroy and the establishment of the bishopric of Zagreb. Ladislav's advance further into Croatia met stronger resistance by the Croatian nobility in the hilly and mountainous areas. He also did not receive the Pope's blessing for his acquisition of Croatia, and was forced to withdraw back into Hungary when the Byzantine Emperor paid the Pecheneg and/or Kuman raiders to attack Hungary from the east. The Byzantine Emperor was attempting to reassert his authority over Dalmatia, while dealing with other problems. In Croatia, one pretender seems to have gathered more support than the others. The noble Peter Snačić or Svačić was elected king, presumably in 1093, but he still faced opposition. King Ladislav of Hungary died in 1095, and was succeeded by his nephew Koloman, who, after spending the start of his reign dealing with rowdy crusaders passing through Hungary, returned to Croatia to assert his claim to the rest of the kingdom. He appears to have received papal approval, and a version of the events goes that he began his invasion into Croatia under the pretext of escorting his bride, Felicia of Sicily, from Dalmatia to Hungary. Koloman's army defeated King Peter at the Battle of Gvozd Hill in 1097, and advanced further into Croatia, but also ran into resistance and was forced to return due to Kuman-related problems in the east. There isn't an indication that this time it was due to the Byzantine Emperor's influence, as he was busy dealing with the Seljuks and rowdy crusaders at this time. At some point during all this, a detachment of knights collected and delivered Koloman's bride to Hungary. What followed is unclear, but at some point in the 5 years after the Battle of Gvozd Hill, the Croatian estates negotiated an agreement with King Koloman. In return for him and his heirs being elected kings of Dalmatia and Croatia, Koloman swore to protect the traditional rights, liberties, privileges, and institutions of the Croatian estates and kingdom, and was crowned as king of Dalmatia and Croatia in Beograd on the Sea in 1102. This agreement between the Croatian estates and Koloman is known as the Pacta Conventa, which isn't a document we actually have, and that has caused some trouble. Instead, we have a 14th century mention of it in a chronicle that also claims privileges were given to 12 specific Croatian noble families conveniently contemporary to that century. But the fact that some sort of actual deal was made with Koloman is proven more by the fact that Croatian institutions, such as the viceregal ban and the Croatian Sabor, Diet or Parliament, were maintained for centuries, and their historical legitimacy was not brought into question until the 18th-19th centuries, but that's another story. After his coronation in 1102, it took Koloman 3 years to take control of Dalmatia and its coastal communes, finishing the acquisition and the unification of the kingdoms, with his entry into Zadar in 1105.